Hello everyone from Ali at 11th House Wales, and welcome to a weekly appointment. Can you believe that it is December already and we are inching towards the holiday season? Love it or hate it, we are. There's nothing we can do about it. And because I know that it is anxiety inducing for a lot of people, I want to tackle anxiety again today before we move on in the next couple of weeks to something more typically Christmassy, more typically festive. So, as you know, I'm very, very fond of empowering you to take control of the tools that you have in your hands that you can use to manage anxiety. And by all means, it is very, very beneficial to work with a therapist if you need to, work with a professional, work with me if you want to. But remember that you've got so much that you can do for yourself. So what I want to do is give you easy tools that you can use in your everyday life to manage your anxiety. So the first thing that I want to get to with this is, it's one of my hobby horses, when I say use your choice, choose the meaning. We can't always control what happens in life, but we can definitely choose the meaning for ourselves. So we have talked before about reframing, changing the meaning of something that happens to us. And it is something that can sound, and I am aware of this as I'm talking to you, it can sound a little bit like, airy-fairy, new agey, positive thinking kind of thing. However, the study which I always go to, which I absolutely love because it really is so empowering, it is absolutely incredible, is the one by the University of Wisconsin, where they followed 30,000 people. They followed over 8 years. So a huge sample over a very long time. And they found that, as you might expect, people who felt very stressed out were more likely to die, unfortunately. However, people who were also under a lot of stress, but who believed that that stress was actually beneficial for them, actually were the healthiest of the three groups that they studied. I've told you the story a bit wonky. They had three groups. One group was people who felt under a lot of stress and they believed it was harmful for them. The other group was people who weren't under a lot of stress. And this third and crucial group were people under a lot of stress who felt that that stress was beneficial. It was something that was helping them to cope with the challenges. It was something that gave them energy, the ability to think on the hoof, and it was preparing them for action. So for these people who imbued the stress with that particular meaning, these were the healthiest people of the whole study, healthier than the ones who are not under a lot of stress at all. Now, wrap your mind around this, please, because I'm still in that process of wrapping my mind around it. And I think it is absolutely incredible. So rather than being something, up in the air, it is there, in print, black and white, and peer-reviewed and replicated. And that is the measure of just how much your mind sets your course and your body follows, and your not just mental health but physical health as well follows. This is the power that you have, so please don't give it away. Don't let other people create your meanings. You decide your meanings and you implement your meanings and you wield that power that you have. That is your right. So putting all of this aside, let's get to the point, which is reframing the anxiety. How do you reframe the anxiety? Well, there are many, many ways of creating a different meaning, reinterpreting that anxiety. And one of these ways is looking at the physical symptoms themselves. So how do you feel when you're anxious physically? Well, your heart is beating fast. What else? Your breathing is fast and shallow. What else? You are sweating. You are finding that all of your energy is going to your limbs. You are getting ready to fight or flight. So your salivation stops, your digestion stops. And when is another occasion, another situation where you feel like that, exactly like that physically? Well, it's when you are exercising. So if we look at all of these physical responses as misplaced exercise behavior, exercise responses, then it all changes. For some of us, and I shouldn't say yes because I'm not one of those wonderful people, who really get in the flow when they are exercising. And this might be you. If you get into that meditative state and you really enjoy your exercise, your workout, or when you are running, that is the same physical response as when you are anxious. But look at the difference in the way that we relate to the same response. One of them we dread and the other one we relish. And that is just down to our interpretation of it. That is just down to the meaning that we have put on it. So if we are thinking of that response, just like in the stress study, as something well-intentioned that our brain has put into effect. Oh, look, my brain is preparing my body for a certain response, which it deems necessary. Now, I know that this response is not necessary. I am preparing for exercise, which is an unnecessary reaction now. I don't need to exercise now. I might not even want to exercise now. So what can you do in that case? Well, you can implement strategies that we have already practiced together. So you can use your behavior, you can use your body to inform your brain that actually we don't need to exercise, we don't need to fight anything or run away right now. There is no threat. Using your breath, for example, as you can remember probably, because I tend to harp on about this, keep that out breath longer than the in breath, because it is when you breathe out that you are activating your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest response. So you can count the time that it takes you to breathe in and count the time that it takes you to breathe out, and make sure that breathing out is a longer count. It could be, for example, the 7-11 breathing, where you breathe in for a count of 7, which is not 7 seconds, it's just a count of 7. It can be any speed that you want it to be, and then you breathe out for a count of 11, so maintaining the same speed of counting. And that also has the added advantage that you are thinking about the numbers. You're not thinking about your response, your physical response anymore. Or you can chew gum, which is something that sounds so trivial, but salivation stops when you are in that fight or flight emergency response. There is no energy to devote to digestion. There is no energy to devote to salivation. So if you make yourself chew and salivate by chewing gum, then it means that you are sending a signal to your brain that, look, I can afford to do this. I can afford to chew. I can afford to salivate. I can afford to digest, which means there is no threat in the environment, and your brain will catch up. Now, something else that you can do with that exercise response is actually act it out. So your body wants to move. Your body wants to run away from that stressor, from that perceived threat. In that case, do let it fulfill that function that it wants to fulfill. Just exercise. You could If you are in public, you could just excuse yourself to another room, go to the bathroom and do some star jumps, do 20 star jumps or do 20 push-ups, or do some fast running on the spot, so that you are actually completing that circuit. You are completing that cycle. And what happens then? Well, what happens is that your brain will have perceived that instead of being there still cowering in a bush trying to hide, you have successfully escaped from the threat, in which case you can then afford to relax. And you will be able to calm down now because you have fulfilled that function that your body wanted to fulfill. Now, there was another study, and of course, we all know that exercise is beneficial for us, not just physically, but psychologically as well. But one study in particular, which was in 2011, and I can't remember when it was carried out, but just to give you some confirmation that you can look up, and they found that people were reacting in a much more relaxed way, so their anxious response was a lot lower if they had just exercised. So it is something that, if you do it regularly, can just lower your anxiety and stress response in your everyday life. So your baseline will be lower, will be calmer, but you can also do as a response to something in the moment, something that is happening right now to stress you out or to make you feel anxious. And you can just, complete that cycle and turn into the survivor instead of the victim. Now, another way that we can reframe anxiety instead of being an unnecessary exercise response is by turning it into a number. So instead of being a collection of feelings, you're turning it into just a number on a scale. So ask yourself when you start feeling anxious, okay, on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is I don't feel anything, and 10 is it couldn't possibly be worse than this, where do you rate your anxiety? And give it a number. Now, you are not only turning all of these unpleasant and scary and alarming sensations and feelings into just a number, but you are also removing yourself from your own personal investment in this anxious response. You are not enmeshed with all of this soup of feelings and sensations anymore. You are outside of it, looking at it, observing it, gauging it. So if you remember when we talked about physical pain, we were talking about imagining there was a barrier to distance yourself from it, and remove yourself from it so that you are on the outside of the pain, looking at it. So that has the other effect of, we were talking about cognitive diffusion some time ago, of not making you feel like you are part of it. You're not part of it anymore. You are outside it, looking in, just looking at it. You are the observer. You are an impartial, neutral observer. So I really hope that this has been helpful to you. So these were two very different ways of reframing it. So the reframing it as exercise, you can actually exploit the exercise response to get to the end of it. And with the turning it into a number, you are using your prefrontal cortex. So you are taking yourself away from that limbic system, what they call your primitive brain response. And we were saying some time ago that these two systems are they are in competition, and when one is activated, the other one can't butt in, and the other way around. So if you are putting yourself into that prefrontal cortex mode of reasoning, then you are regaining control over that instinctive response. So two very different ways of reframing, of working with anxiety, but again, two ways that you can implement changes in your everyday life. And I really hope that you will be able to notice these changes and to use these tools that you do have, and they're always there for you to use. Please use them. So I will see you here again next week, and until then, have a lovely, relaxed, calm and peaceful week. All the best from me. Bye. Bye-bye.